Okay, the question had to do an island fill with rhinestones on a shape. And first I'll just do something very simple to show you what I understand to be island fill. I've used the other software that does have an island fill for engraving. Make the Cut does not have exactly an island fill, but when I want to do an island fill, I use the duplicate nested feature. So I'm going to click on basic shapes and start with a circle. Just type CI, double click on the circle, and I'll just resize it to 3 inches just so that all the detail doesn't bog down the system. If you have larger designs, you might want to make sure everything is turned off and you don't have a lot of things running, because once you break apart all those little rhinestones, you get a lot of detail that your computer has to deal with. I'm starting with a circle here, and I'm going to go to Edit and Duplicate, but I have to have the circle chosen. Edit, Duplicate, and Nested Duplicate. Now you can fool around with different sizes and different gaps. I've played around with the gap and found that I liked the spacing between the different rows to be -0.2, but you can make this whatever size fits your stones and your design. So I set this at -0.2 inches. I selected duplicate by scaling, and I'm scaling by the width. Now you get a little different effect maybe by shadowing, and sometimes it's good to try both just to see what happens. You can choose a color to differentiate between the different layers, and then you click on Preview. Now if I reduce the count here and then click on Preview, you see that I have fewer rings in here. As I increase and click Preview, I get another fill. So I might be able to get one more here. Yes, I got one more. So you can play with that. This is duplicate by scaling. That means resizing each ring here by the gap, which is a -0.2. I'm doing minus to fill with inside because I like the precision of the negative fill as opposed to the rounded effect I might get by using a positive. But I'm going to click on Accept. Now I have all of these different rings. The different colors just help me see them better. Doesn't make a big difference in how it's cut. Then I'm going to select all of this and go down to the second icon from the right on the bottom toolbar, hovering over it. It says Rhinestone. When I click that, it opens a rhinestone window. Now you're going to want to use the size rhinestone that you have. This is stone size 9, and which would measure a 0.100. Now, if I'm using rhinestones, I want to do a test to make sure that I've chosen the size holes that my rhinestones will easily drop into. Normally, I would choose a rhinestone hole size 3 sizes larger than the actual stones so that it would fall easily into the holes that I cut for the rhinestones. Now once I pick a size, then I can choose the spacing between the stones and then preview it on the mat. Now when you have a symmetrical shape, you can get a pretty good representation, pretty good fill all the way around, except, and then if there's a little stone that's out of place, you're not sure you like where it is, you can split. That is, use the split icon, which is 5th from the left on the bottom, and it breaks all of them apart. Just be really careful when you split. If you have thousands of these circles, you could really slow down your system or even crash if you don't have a lot of memory available. Now you see that each circle can be moved, and this is kind of one that's out of place here. I could remove it. If you wanted all of these to line up, you would have a little bit of editing to do. If you want them to have a more random look, you can leave them like they are. There are different, our spacing and alignment tools can help you with some alignment issues. Another way to work with the alignment, if I go back to this and select the rhinestone again, I can change the spacing by clicking on the bar and moving it a little and preview so that I see a different arrangement of these circles each time I move that slider, and you can just click on it multiple times to get a different look each time. I could click on this bar and touch my left arrow key to get a slightly different spacing, and I'll see a different preview on the mat. So it depends on what you're looking for. You can watch the alignment of the circles if that's what is important to you, and continue to move the spacing a little bit closer or a lot closer or further apart. Not very good effect away far apart, and you want to make sure that they're not too close so that they're touching. If we move it all the way to the left, you see that these holes are touching, and that wouldn't be a very effective look for rhinestones. So we don't have a lot of rhinestone tools in Make the Cut. If you're going to do a lot of rhinestones, you might want to invest in a special application that gives you a lot more control over the positions of these stones. In Make the Cut, we do have that option, though, to split this, and then we can move any stone where we want. But having to individually move hundreds of these little circles can get very tedious. So that's where some automated tools might be helpful. Here I just held Control and Shift and dragged, and that gave me an extra circle to fill in spaces. So if we have, let's say we have a different shape that's symmetrical, maybe a hexagon, I type HEX, double click on the hexagon, and again I'll just size it to about 3 inches so that we can see the effect but not get things bogged down too much. With it selected, I go to Edit, Duplicate, Nested Duplicate, and I'll just leave it again on the gap of -2, which you can change. I'll reduce that to 6. Looks like 7 will work there, and Accept. So then I select it all, click on the rhinestone icon at the bottom, and I think that I get a pretty good setting here when I take the spacing to 0.1, especially when I've got these set up as a -0.2. I've got the spacing set to half the size of my shapes here, and I can preview on the mat, Accept, then I can split, and if there's anything that's out of place or if I need extras, I can start doing my editing. I can line up rows horizontally, vertically, using all the spacing tools. You can move them. There are some rhinestone programs that will automatically detect if any of the stones are touching and notify you. There are others that give you some nice automatic features. We don't have those and make the cut. Now, it's a little different if you, let's say, have a non-symmetrical design like a heart. Let me say I'll use this heart. And again, I'll just resize it to 3 inches. And go to Edit, Duplicate, Nested Duplicate, and Preview here. So I've got more rounding here, and that's fine. We have sections of this that are much closer here at the top than they are here, so we're going to have a jumble of stones around here that might require editing. So when you're using non-symmetrical shapes, you want to keep that in mind. You might want to reduce the number of islands in here or nested shapes. You might want to change the gap a little bit and preview it. I put a little more gap in there. It depends on the look you want with your rhinestones. So if I accept that, and then again,
just as a comment, you can also switch over to shadow instead of by scale.
Yes. The shadow is another option that can give you a totally different look, and I'll show you that after I do this here. So if I could preview on the mat, I've got everything kind of spread out, but maybe by moving the stones a little bit closer, I might get more of an island effect. But you see, the closer I get it, the more jumble that I have at the top. And you have to decide the look that you want. Now, I'm gonna cancel this and maybe start with, I'll just undo back to this shape here and see what happens if I do a duplicate, nested duplicate using the shadow option and preview. Now I have it mitered here, and mitered gives it the square look, but I can change that to rounded and preview, and that gives me rounded shapes, and that may or may not be what you're looking for. You lose the look of the heart, but it might do a better fill than what we've got. We can change that back to, let's say, a 1.5 minus 1.5, well, minus 0.15, which moves it pretty close for the size of rhinestone that I've selected. But let's accept that and then go to the rhinestone to see what effect we can get with that. And mostly it's playing with it, as well as the spacing. Now this effect is a lot better than the other. With this, I'd rather have a shape like this that I can fill in the spaces than to have them all jumbled. It's a personal preference, but let's say that I hold, first I have to split, and then I can take a stone here, Control Shift and drag, and then I can just add a few in here where it might be appropriate in between some of these that are existing in here, and this will give me a little more control than the random. I think those who, when you play with this, it'll give you a greater appreciation for those who sell pre-made designs ready for use with rhinestones. It'll help you appreciate all the massive amounts of editing time that a well-done rhinestone design might have. So you can do it and make the cut, but if I were doing a lot of these, I would not want to spend all the hours in refining and editing, and I really like everything to be balanced, and it would really bother me to have to go through and make sure everything was perfect. Having some automatic tools would be very beneficial if you're going to do a lot of these and really want perfection. So again, you can do your nesting by shadow, or and then you could choose rounded or mitered or different shapes. But this is the concept of an island fill is just filling with inset lines and then changing the lines to your size of rhinestone that you want. Do we have any questions?
There was one.
Yes.
Go ahead, Susan.
No, you go.
Okay, there was one. Leslie had. I'm sorry, not Leslie. Lee had said when you were back on the hexagon that she saw that there was a triangle that could be perfected and then repeated 5 more times. Would that work better?
If you wanted to do a triangle, you could work with a smaller segment. That's an idea. And then you could duplicate that and then fill each one. I would probably fill each one first and get it the way I want it to. Duplicate, nested duplicate, and I wouldn't need to fill this with 6 as small as I've got it, but maybe change that to a -0.1 and then change that to the island fill that changes to a rhinestone and preview. Probably want to give it a little more spacing here, but not too much. And little fine adjustments with the arrow key might make a difference. And it just seems that I'm getting a lot of jumble. So you could try changing the sizes, but then you would. Your size is usually dependent on the rhinestones that you have.
Yeah, Lee mentioned that when you were doing the hexagon, that she saw the triangle within that shape. So when you were, I guess, when you were adjusting the hexagon, her question would be: could you just adjust a 1/6 of it? Get that perfected, and then duplicate it all the way around. I think that's what she was asking.
Yes, you can edit little sections. It might be a little difficult to select just a triangle's worth of designs to edit and multiply. I probably would try to make my triangle the way I wanted it and then duplicate that rather than select it. But let's just go back to where I was here. You got to do edit, duplicate, nested duplicate. I had been on scaling at that time, and I had 6 or 7 at -0.2, I believe. And then the rhinestone preview. So we could possibly select a section of these. Let's just accept this and break this apart. I probably don't need this one right here, but this triangle of shapes would be kind of hard to drag a selection around, but you could hold the Shift key to add to your selection until you had all of the shapes in your triangle selected. And let's say that's the group of rhinestones that I want. I wanted to get one more here. And then join those. I don't know why I can't select that one. Hold Shift. So I'll just select this one first and hold Shift, then select that and then join. Now I have this group that I could do I'd probably edit this just a little bit more so that I have these lined up the way I want. I could select all of these and type T so they're lined up in a row, and if any seem to be out of position, I can move them over a little bit. I can use the spacing tools that we have, which would be, let's say that I select all of these. I put the outside circles where I want them, right-click, and align and space, and I want to space them evenly, let's say vertically. Maybe it was horizontally. Space horizontally. Now it perfectly spaced all of these between the one previous. And then I could do the same here. Still seems that this one is a little bit out. But now once I have this, I can join them all, and then I could do a duplicate rotate. And I want to add 5 of these. And I needed 60 degrees with, let's start with a 0. Don't want a 0. Let's say 20. It's a little bit too much. So then I could start moving these together. Somebody was saying they were having trouble getting this to work, but seems to work for me. If the little stones start running into each other, then they're too close. So I can get a pretty good line up there, and then I could add more or take away more, depending on the design. Maybe I want that little snowflake effect in there. If I join them all, you can see that effect a little better.